All right, so we are just glad that y'all are here. I'm sorry we don't have a full house for this man because he deserves, he deserves to have people standing all over the room. Because you will find that Dick Hester is one of the most prestigious people in all of the Grand Strand. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dick. First of all, I've known him for 40 years that I've lived in the area, and he is top notch. A couple of years ago, he hired Chuck and I to come into the city of North Myrtle Beach and interview people, 180, I think it was 186 people. Now, we didn't interview them all at one time, but we would meet, for instance, every Wednesday, all day, at City Hall, and we would interview different people that Dick had lined up. Every 45 minutes, we had somebody else. So it was like an 8-hour day where we interviewed about 6 or 7 people each day until we had all these wonderful stories from people all over North Myrtle Beach, Little River, Longs, all the little nooks and crannies, communities I had hardly even ever heard of. And it was fascinating. But he did this for for the opening of the North Myrtle Beach Historical Museum. And we'll tell you more about that in just a little bit. But Dick is the father. I didn't say godfather. I didn't say grandfather or great-grandfather. Dick is the founder of the North Myrtle Beach Historical Museum, and we'll talk about that. Dick grew up in Bladenboro, North Carolina, and graduated from Bladenboro High School. He moved to Ocean Drive in 1956. He has been a past member of the board of directors for the Horry County TB Association. Past Scoutmaster, Boy Scout, Troop 805, past chairman of the North Myrtle Beach United Way campaign. He worked for the Cancer Society as a volunteer, the March of Dimes. He's a lifetime member of the South Carolina Garden Club, past president of the Upper Grand Strand JCs, and he even received the State of South Carolina Faith in God Award in 1969 to 70. Dick has worked for the North Myrtle Beach Chamber for years and years, and the Myrtle Beach Chamber, past member of the Board of Directors and Vice President of the Greater Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce. He was elected to 3 four-year terms for the Horry County Board of Education, serving as Vice Chairman his last term. And he served on the Blue Ribbon Committee to consolidate the 4 towns of Cherry Grove, Ocean Drive, Crescent Beach, and Windy Hill in 1968. That's one of our best stories you're going to hear today. He was elected mayor of North Myrtle Beach from 84 to 89, and he's a veteran of the United States Navy, serving 52 to 56 on active duty. Also, Dick has been involved with all sorts of things, but he retired in 1999 as general manager of Azalea Sands Golf Club. He now works part-time at Lee Funeral Home and Crematory in Little River and North Myrtle Beach, and he works part-time for the North Myrtle Beach Times newspaper, Polly's right-hand man. Very active in his church, Lakeside Baptist Church, where he's been a member for the past 48 years. Has taught Sunday school. Well, you name it, he's just about done it all. And of course, was a member, I think still is, of the Lions Club up there. Are you? Are you still a Lion? You can still roar, though. You can still roar?
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh, yes, okay, okay. Yeah, Dick was telling me that even though he's been involved in just about every aspect up in North Myrtle Beach, he has slowed down on the extracurricular activities, but at 90 years old, he still has 2 part-time jobs. Let's hear it for Dick Hester. So, Dick, tell us a little bit about what actually brought you here in 56.
Well, is it working? I'd been in the Navy for 4 years, and I got married the 4th year I was in the Navy. And so I had an uncle who was living here in Ocean Drive. Back at that time, it was Ocean Drive, Cherry Grove, Crescent Beach, and Windy Hill. And he knew I was going to get out of the service, so he asked me to come to work for him. And the name of the business was Ocean Drive Builder Supply. And we had 3 builder supply companies along the Grand Strand here. We had Ocean Drive Builder Supply, Charlotte Lumber Company, and Myrtle Beach Lumber Company. And we all delivered lumber and sold lumber from Georgetown to Ocean Isle Beach. So it was not too difficult to, back in the mid-50s, to know practically every person that lived in this area. We had 200 voters in the city of Ocean Drive back then. So it was not like it is today. So I come to work for them, and I wanted to complete my 20 years in the reserve of the Navy, and I could go to Georgetown to the Naval Reserve Unit every Monday night. And I did that, and I completed 17 years of service. And they moved the reserve unit from Georgetown down to Charleston. And I couldn't make it to Charleston with the job I had. Be there at 6:30 and get back home about midnight to attend the reserve units. So I just had to stop at 17 years. But I enjoyed all of it. And living here in this area is the best place in the world, right here where we are, in this strip along the Grand Strand.
Dick, you're one of the most versatile people I've ever met because, as you mentioned, the building supply company, vice president of the Loris and North Myrtle Beach offices of Farmers Bank, now NBSC. You were the owner of Dick Hester's Calabash Seafood Restaurant, owner of Hester Real Estate and Rentals and Development Company, and the owner of Azalea Sands Golf Club. So you have had your hands in more aspects of just about anything than, I mean, who else has done this kind of work? I mean, what a variety. And so from one to the next, what has been like your real passion there? Was it golf?
Well, it was when golf came along. When I was at the Builder Supply, golf was just beginning to spring up here along the coast. We had the Dunes Club and we had Pine Lakes, and that was about it. After I'd been at the Builder Supply 11 years, South Carolina National Bank had a depository up on Main Street in the Ocean Drive section. Had two people working there, Byron Stack and May Baldwin. And I'd been treasurer of the Lions Club for about 15 years. And we had these little penny bubblegum machines that you don't see around anymore, but back then we had them everywhere. And that was the closest place that we could deposit money. And if you wanted to have a checking account, you had to come over here to Myrtle Beach to one of the main offices to set up your checking account and so forth. And so I took 2 10-quart bucketfuls of pennies into the bank on Main Street for them to count for us and put them in the Lions Club's account. And they said, we can't do that, you're gonna have to count them. So I took them, went back to my car and went to the next Lions Club meeting. I took them in and set them on the counter, the head table, and we were meeting at Hoskins Restaurant up there. And I told the club, I says, you can either get you a new bank or you can get you a new treasurer. And they told me to go to get a new bank. So I went to Loris and checked in with the Farmers Bank over there. And Mr. Stabler, he was in charge of it, and he told me, he says, I told him what had happened, and he said, well, you bring it to me. Any way you want to bring it, we'll count it, and we'll put it in your checking account. And he said, we just want you to bring it to us. So when I started to leave, he called me in his office, and he says, Dick, he says, we're going to open up a branch bank in Ocean Drive. It'll be a full-service bank. And could you recommend someone to run that bank for us? And I said, well, Mr. Stabler, I know 2 people that I could recommend. And I said, one of them is Blakeney Jackson Jr., and the other is Don Smith. And we kept talking for a few minutes, and he says, Well, we were sort of thinking about you. And that was the biggest shock I believe I've ever had in my life right there. And he says, you don't have to answer me today. And he knew everything about me. He knew that I was in a contract with Mr. Hussey, who was my employer, about buying the hardware store that was in the builder supply. And he says, talk to Mr. Hussey and see what he says. So I came back, and 2 or 3 days passed, and Mr. Hussey came out one day right after lunch, and he says, do you have something you'd like to talk to me about? I said, well, I guess I need to. And he said, well, let's ride out here across 17. There was a little restaurant there, and have a cup of coffee and let's talk. And we'd already entered into a contract for me to buy the hardware part of the business. And he says, Dick, he says, I think you need to go with the bank. I think that would be best for you. And he says, we'll forget about the deal that we've made. And so I told him at the bank that I would take the job, so I fulfill my obligation of opening the first full-service bank in Ocean Drive. And I worked there 11 years. And when the day we opened, I went over to Lowe's and I picked up $35,000 in cash and brought it back to the beach to open up the bank with. So I was in debt that much money the first day. So after 11 years there, we had grown, and our net worth at that office was $28 million. So about that time, the beach started really moving on. The golf courses started coming into being, and I financed basically all the golf courses up on the North Strand, Calabash, Bay Tree, some of those who remember Bay Tree. And so I really enjoyed being at the bank and helping people. And I still enjoy helping people today. But due to life circumstances, you can't do everything that you would like to do when you get a little age on you. So it's having come to North Myrtle Beach or to Ocean Drive, I immediately saw that we had 4 mayors, we had 4 town councils, well, 5 with Atlantic Beach, but we had 5 sets of ordinances. Everyone who did work up there had to have 4 or 5 business licenses, and all of them had different ordinances that they had to abide by. So in talking with the contractors and electricians and everybody that did work in all up and down the Strand, said something needs to be done about this. So I started talking it, and we finally got a committee. And the biggest trouble we had with getting it together was the mayors. They didn't want to give up their title. But I could see the benefit that the people would receive if we were one town. And so we formed a committee, we met, we set an election date to consolidate, all except Atlantic Beach, and they wouldn't go along with us. And we held the election, and we recommended that we be named North Myrtle Beach, because Myrtle Beach was fairly well known all over everywhere. And we figured we would come into Myrtle Beach, that could be North Myrtle Beach, and maybe one day it'll all be together. But it passed, and we had 1 mayor, 1 city council, 1 set of ordinances, and one of the best things that ever happened to the north end of the beach. We have grown. The town's done real well. I'm not a politician. I do not like politics. I like to be honest with the people, and we have, since I sort of semi-retired, we've had people come to me and want me to run for mayor again, and I said, no, I'm not gonna run. I'm too old. I can't keep the pace that you have to have being mayor. And Bob Grissom was mayor here at the time. And Bob and I would go to all these little conventions that were coming to the beach back in those days. And Bob he loved to tell jokes. And I'm not a joke teller. I'm serious. So Bob would get up and he would tell jokes and so forth, and then I would get up and welcome the people and be serious with them. But I enjoyed being the mayor, and the people just asking me now said, we never did start moving in this end of the beach until you became mayor. He says, you're one of the people that would tell people what you could do for them and do it. And if you couldn't do it, you would also tell them that. I'm going to tell you this, and never did get it council to go along with it, but I would let people talk to the city council at city council meetings, and the council members would say, why do you let these people talk for 10 minutes? I said, well, as long as they don't start repeating themselves, I'm going to let them talk. I says, you know, it's a state law that no more than one council member can meet with a person at the time, unless you're in a call meeting. And I says, I'll tell you what I'll do. You make a motion at a meeting that we don't let our constituents talk to us, and we'll put it to a vote. And I could never get one of them to make the motion. But they wanted me to do it, and then I'd have been the bad guy. So I had former mayors come to me, and their children would get caught for speeding or whatever. And they'd say, go talk to that police officer and see if you can't get that ticket taken care of. I says, no, I can't do that. I says, you've been the mayor, and you know you can't do that. I says, we can be fined $10,000 if we're found interfering with a person who has a ticket. And I says, just as sure as I was to do that, somebody would turn me in. And I says, I can't do it. You'll have to do it. And that's where all these ministers up there are telling me that if you told a person you couldn't do something, you stuck with it and didn't do it. But if you told them you would do something and you could do it, you did it. And that's the way politics should be. But it's not that way. I don't know of anything that goes on in the city that the public shouldn't be made aware of. And we've got one situation in our city up there now that I still don't understand. But it was wrong. It's still wrong. And I think with the next election it may come out. But when you pay somebody not to say something, that's wrong if it pertains to city business. So we have come a long way in North Myrtle Beach, and we offered the Atlantic Beach section, which is 3 blocks wide. We offered them 2 city council members if they would come in with us, and they wouldn't do it. And all the rest of us had 1. So it's been good for the area, and it's been good for the beach, and I think it's helped to make our Grand Strand one of the best places in the world.
Dick, you have served on the Board of Education, and of course, at the time, it was so different than it is now. But what was it like in the early days, education-wise? We really haven't had many people here who have been able to talk about that, but it's certainly, when you were involved, totally different than it is now. And then I know you were involved with the Academy of Arts, Science, and Technologies, as I was. We were both on that board. So tell us what it was like in the early days of education.
Well, when I served on the board, we didn't have all the high schools we have today. We needed a new high school in Conway. We needed one in North Myrtle Beach. We needed one in Loris. And that cost a lot of money back then. I really enjoyed serving on the Board of Education. There is some politics there, which I didn't like. I didn't like having to call the school and tell them when, as a board member, I wanted to come out and have lunch with them. Like today, I don't see anything wrong with that. Just to see what kind of lunch they were served. And they wouldn't let us do that. We had to set up appointment times that we went to schools in days in advance. And that didn't help me at all. But the school system was not as large as it is now. I believe we had about 18,000 students. And I don't really know how many we have today, but it's 20s, high 20s or 30s. 40,000. That's one big difference, and there's a lot of information that is being made available to our children that should not be made available to them, and I'm sure most of you or all of you are aware of that. I think there's a time when this type of information should be made available to people, not children, small children. And but John Dawsey was the superintendent of education. He was from Aner, and we built all those schools. And I'm going to tell you this: here in Myrtle Beach, there, over next to where the high school is, there was a piece of property where all the athletic facilities are there, and 2 new schools were there. And we bought that piece of property, and we paid $350,000 for it. And we built athletic facilities, or the school district has, and 2 new schools, and they sold the corner for the bank that's over there for more money than we paid for the whole property. Now, this is the way that politicians should work. For the people. And we got criticized for spending that kind of money, but I hadn't heard a single person criticize us for doing it since they sold the bank property and the bank built over there. But we have the same situation up at the North Myrtle Beach High School. We had right at 10 acres of property. They wanted $200,000 and some $1,000 for it. I went over to the school district and told them they needed to buy that piece of property. And the guy that was in charge says, we don't need any more property. And if we did, we'd have to get our attorneys to go over and look at it and all this before we could make that decision. Well, the $200,000+ has turned into $6 million that the property is being sold for today. Now, I thought that was a good deal for the taxpayers of Horry County, and they could have sold the outlots next to Highway 90 and Highway number 9, Sea Mountain Highway, and got more than, I don't know how much money they could have got for that, and still had all that acreage left for the high school. They bought a restaurant right side of the high school there and turned it into a parking lot. $500,000, when they could have had the 10 acres for $200,000. Now, that's the kind of politician I am. But it don't ring on too many ears when you're trying to do it that way.
So, you've kind of said a lot about the education system, but I'm wondering how you feel about North Myrtle Beach, let's say the leaders, because we've all seen that, for instance, there used to be a very active North Myrtle Beach Chamber of Commerce. Now there's just a visitor center, not a chamber. Then you've got the Little River Chamber. Do you feel that the leaders in North Myrtle Beach are currently trying to move in the same direction? I just want your comments, Dick, because you've been around a long time. I know that's that's a Barbara Walters question.
Yeah. I still think we should be the Chamber of Commerce, not the destination, North Myrtle Beach. There's not too many people that you mentioned destination North Myrtle Beach that knows what you're talking about. And I don't know why our city leaders went along with that change. I would not have done that had I been on council. You very rarely hear of anything that the chamber is doing. The Little River Chamber, it's got some problems. They're doing business out of town, but yet they're begging people to join the chamber doing business in town, and I don't think that's right. So everybody has opinions, but if I'm going out here and trying to get you to do business with me, I'm going to do everything I can to help you too.
Your job with the funeral home, Lee's, they're so lucky to have you. When I talk to people in North Myrtle Beach, they say the greatest thing is that they get a sincere hug and warmth when they come in and they've lost a loved one. I mean, I don't know how you do it, Dick. You know every person whose body comes through there. You know their family. You're intimate with their children and grandchildren. I know you're doing something really wonderful, but it's got to be tough.
It is tough. That's probably one of the worst times that a family has to face while they're here on this earth, is the loss of a loved one, and especially children. We're there to help them overcome that loss as best we can. And I'm not working full time now, but we had this guy. He retired from the city of North Myrtle Beach. We had his funeral last Saturday, and his family asked Mr. Lee to get me to come and work the service. I'd known him ever since I've been at the beach all these 70 years, and that made me feel real good. It's a hard job, but it's not a physically hard job. Now, and I'm going to get back a little personal here. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetic, and I was picking up bodies, going to homes, and as we'd pick them up, we'd ask, what the problem was and so forth. And a lot of them had lost a leg, lost a foot from diabetes. And here I was, diagnosed with type 2 diabetic, And I said, this is not going to happen to me. I'm not going to lose my leg. I'm not going to lose my foot. And that's what cured me from being a diabetic. And I am cured. I got a letter from my doctor telling me that he said, the next time you come to me, I'm going to do away with all your diabetic medicine because you show no signs of being a diabetic. And I appreciate him helping me, but the help came from me observing what happens to people who are diabetic. And that was the best cure that I could have received right there.
Your other job currently is the newspaper, and in a time that newspapers all over the country, including other media, radio, TV, everybody's struggling, but especially small town newspapers. And Polly Loman has kept the pace. It's really quite amazing that the paper is still going strong. And I wanted you to comment on that because it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, Polly Loman is the publisher and editor. She was born in Little River. She's 89 years old. She's had this newspaper there in North Myrtle Beach, the only North Myrtle Beach newspaper ever. And the only newspaper by a local person on the Grand Strand today. She's entered into her 55th year 6 weeks ago. And she doesn't seem to want to give it up. But it's a good thing. It's a local newspaper. It's not a national newspaper. It keeps people informed on what's going on in the local community. And she's done real well with it. And it's a good thing for the north end of the beach. And we have out-of-town property owners who subscribe to the paper, and we send it all over everywhere. It comes out once a week, every Thursday. And so it's been a good thing for North Myrtle Beach, and it's been a good thing for Polly Loman.
Been a good thing for you too, because I know you love it. What kind of questions do you all have for Dick? Because some of you, like Nancy, grew up in North Myrtle Beach. Yes.
So to get a little political, something you touched on before, I see it in the news about the difference in the debt North Myrtle Beach carries versus the debt Myrtle Beach carries. What are your comments about that?
I don't know. I don't know what the debt in Myrtle Beach is. North Myrtle Beach, they seem to have plenty of money up there. I don't know. I don't know why they should have a debt, really. And I wish I could be more specific, but I'm just not in places to know those kind of answers. I know that they spend money they shouldn't be spending, especially North Myrtle Beach, and that's what I'm speaking about. I don't know that much about Myrtle Beach, but they all seem to be doing a pretty good job, though.
Well, North Myrtle Beach is doing better on the debt than Myrtle Beach. Yes, Jack.
Again, we'd love to hear about the North Myrtle Beach Museum that you founded.
Okay, back in the 1990s, I saw the skyline of North Myrtle Beach changing. We had these beach houses on stilts on the ocean front, from Cherry Grove right on through Windy Hill, and I mean they were just lined up, one right side of the other. And then when Joe Saliba became mayor, he started building some condominiums, they called them back then. And I saw the skyline in North Myrtle Beach starting to change. And I said, you know, we need to document these changes. so that the people coming along after us will know what we used to look like here. And so I started talking mainly to the Lions Club, and I'd been a member for 58, I was a member for 58 years, but I started talking with some of the older members of the Lions Club, and I told them what I was thinking about, and they said, well, that would be a great idea to save that history. So I got permission from the Lions Club to go to the city council and in '99 and talk to them about giving us permission to start a North Myrtle Beach Area Historical Museum. And they agreed to it. And they agreed to everything except funding it. And so the Lions Club and myself, we started out with it, and Chuck and Diane, they were very instrumental in helping us with the interviews and so forth of the people who were really in charge of seeing the area grow, like Charles Tillman, Bill Hussey, Charlie Byers, the people who were really the movers and shakers of the area. And so the city council says, if you'll chair it, we'll approve it. So I told them I would. And in 2013, the city, the old library there that Horry County built was vacant. And so the city was instrumental in getting us that building, but they wouldn't pay for remodeling it to make a museum out of it. So we had to raise the funds, and we did. And we got it ready, and we opened up in 2013. And that's the site of the North Myrtle Beach Area Historical Museum. It took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of money. Our elected officials up in Columbia, they were very helpful to us in getting us money to do the remodeling and all with. And it's been a tremendous asset for our area. It's not exactly what I had in mind for it, but I found out after I served as chairman for 18 years that the city attorney told me I better give it up because you're only supposed to serve 2 terms. That would be 4 years. But nobody else wanted it. And so when he told me that a couple years ago, I told them they would have to get a new chairman. And I didn't want someone coming back and blaming me for something that may or may not have happened. And they're changing the direction a little bit, but we still have what we originally started with in the background.
How many of y'all have been in the North Myrtle Beach Area Historical Museum? So, you know, it's really adorable. I mean, it's charming, to say the least. And of course, there's a jukebox, and it has shag music, and there's a dance floor, and those kind of things, which of course you would expect in North Myrtle Beach. But also, you know, there's a Vanna White exhibit, and there's a little exhibit on some of the topics that we actually asked people when we interviewed the 180-something people. Some of the topics were like fishing. You know, do you remember fishing? Do you remember all the fish on the beach and people going out with nets and those sorts of things? You know, let's talk about golf, and we talked about dancing, of course, with everybody. We talked about education. Community. So you can actually sit in the museum and watch some of the interviews, which is kind of cool. But Dick has told me that, you know, he's a little nervous that it's becoming a little too much shag. So the chairman of the museum is very much into shag now, and it is becoming a little more of a shag museum than Dick had wanted. But of course, he's still proud of the facility, and you get quite a few visitors, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we have visitors every day. uh, And the people who are coming, when they see me, they comment because I was there so long and instrumental in getting it going. Um, I don't go over and say, you know, you need to do this, do that, because we got a board that does that. And I don't want them to feel like that they go have a time getting rid of me. But it's a good thing, and we have a lot of items that we need to display. There's a lot of good things going on in North Myrtle Beach, good organizations, just like the Shaggers is good, and but it don't need to be, it needs to be all of that together, not just one. And I'm hoping that that's where it's going to begin to proceed to get all these other organizations involved there that's done so much for our area up there.
The growth of churches in the community has been amazing too, and you having been a member at Lakeside for over 48 years, pretty incredible, Dick. And are you amazed that there's a church on every corner now?
And I believe we have 50-some churches up there now. If you'll notice in the North Myrtle Beach Times newspaper, we have a listing of all that will give us their name and number, and we list those. And they call us, and we run free advertising for them. We do everything, you know, for the churches and the civic clubs. So but churches are still growing. Some are shrinking, and some are just starting. And Lakeside, right at the moment, happens to be one that is growing. And but you have several that's out in the community there with all the people that's moving in. 8 or 9 people starting churches now.
So if someone asked you what your proudest moment has been in your career, Dick, and you've done so much, I mean, from the consolidation to, well, the museum and everything in between, I mean, what is the one thing that really stirs your heart that you're so glad you were involved in?
Diane, I'm gonna be very honest with you. I am proud to have been involved in everything I have been involved in. I really have enjoyed my life. It's I think everyone should give back to their community if they're able to do that. And fortunately, thanks to God, I was able to do that. And I am very pleased and happy with having been able to enjoy everything that I have ever done. I don't know of a thing I wouldn't do over again.
Now, how many of us can say that? That's pretty incredible, Dick, you know? You were married to Judy for over 50 years. I'm not sure the exact figure. Judy passed away 3 years ago.
68 years.
68 years. That's a lot more than 50.
Yeah.
And even though she didn't like politics and there were a lot of things like that, you stayed so busy, you stayed gone so much, but she always supported you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she did. She was a wonderful person, the love of my life. We dated in high school, and we got married in the Navy when I was in the Navy, and that's the reason I got out of the Navy because I was married to her, and she helped me all the years that she was here, and she was heavily involved in the community too, with the garden club on the state level, and all the women get involved in. And it's not the same now. You're going home, there's no one there to go in and talk to. all you have is the TV, and you have to listen to that. And it's lonely. It really is. And I'd never experienced anything like that. But I know that she's better off today than I am, and I can't wait to get where she is.
You have Hank, your son, who is in, let's see, is he in he's in North Carolina, right?
He's in Little River.
Little River. So Hank grew up here and went to school here and everything, and and he's still in the area. You're lucky that you do have one son here, and the rest of your children are where?
My daughter is in Savannah. She has her own Chick-fil-A there in Savannah. And my youngest son, he's a minister in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And he travels all over the state with schools and working with kids and their parents and so forth when they get sick.
And children, you got how many grandchildren?
6.
Any greats?
No greats yet.
Not yet, not yet, not yet. Any questions for Dick? Yes. Sports tourism, any competition with North Myrtle Beach to Myrtle Beach? Well, there's always competition between Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach. But
I expect they're both talking to all the same teams. But it is, I think they just bought about 100 acres more up there, and they're almost going down Highway 31. It's looks like town all the way down anymore. But we're growing, and they tell us that they're going to have no problem keeping the facilities occupied, and it's going to bring in millions and millions of dollars to the business owners.
well, in the North Myrtle Beach Sports Complex itself and the park, it's really been a tremendous asset to North Myrtle Beach.
Yes, it has. And they're building houses all around it now. If you go out and going into it, there's a big development on the right-hand side as you're going in, and it'll probably extend on down Highway 31 where the sports complex is extending its area.
There's no limit.
No, that's right.
We've certainly seen that. I know you're amazed by all the development on 90 and 905, and I mean, the area has just exploded is the best word.
The only concern I have right now is there seems to be no interest in our infrastructure. None. We've been trying to get our representatives to give us a story on what's going to take place with the infrastructure, and they won't do that. Now, going back into politics, is that the politicians we want? Or do we need to get politicians who will tell us what's going on? But the traffic is just horrendous. And 1,500 new facilities up in Highway 90, where are those 3,000 cars going to go?
Did you ever think that Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach would touch? That the city limits would touch, which they do now?
I figured it would eventually, yes. When they started talking about developing on the Intercoastal Waterway, yes. We got Briarcliff in between on one side, but I don't know what's going to take place there. But yeah, somewhere down the road, we may all be one big city.
I think that's a good idea. I don't know about you.
We've only been coming down for 10 years, and we've seen the incredible growth and change of North Myrtle.
Yeah,
We're up on 20th Ave.
yeah,
And we're back on the 12th floor.
yeah,
So, we've seen, and all my neighbors have seen the incredible growth and change. And to me, this is only the beginning. All the northern cities are gonna be coming down. We're from across the border, so, you know, they have their own problems.
yeah. Well, they're getting to the point that they're allowing anybody to build anything, anywhere. My next door neighbor was on his lot, and I live in Tillman, on the surf club. Number 2 ladies tee is in my backyard. And my neighbor across the street he was gonna build a garage, but it's turned out to be a 2-story garage with a apartment upstairs. And our deed restrictions up there says you can't have an outside building. So when I found out about it, I went to the city and asked them, why were they allowing that? And they said, we pay no attention to deed restrictions. He says, if you want to take it to court, you'll have to do it, you and your neighbors will have to take it to court with deed restrictions. I said, okay, so you mean to tell me that if I want to take my yard, my front and backyard, and I want to build 6 of these little 2-bedroom houses, 6 on the back side of it, 6 on the front in my front yard, I can do that? He said, yes. As long as it's attached to the present building. And all you got to do is run a string. And I mean, it's getting ridiculous. It's, I mean, and here again, if I were in city government, I'd have to talk strong about deed restrictions.
Question in the back. Yes, dear.
Well, I drive through Bladenboro on the way to my daughters all the time, so
Uh-huh.
that's such a quaint little town. I wanted to tell you, I love your hometown. And, my question is, the penny tax, does that contribute to schools in North Myrtle too? And, does it also contribute funds to the cultural entity?
Paying taxes in Horry County?
That penny tax, no, it's like a separate.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. You have a school tax, yes.
So your question was, in other words, it's not just Myrtle Beach that's benefiting. Yes, North Myrtle Beach.
It's the whole county.
Mhm.
Countywide, yeah, yeah.
No,
No.
sadly.
But you'll get hospitality fees that do that, hospitality.
Yes.
But we need more support for the arts, yes. Anybody else?
This is a random question. You mentioned that you managed to get rid of diabetes. What's the big Hester diet?
Cutting out everything you like. Eating more vegetables. And I got to where I make a meal out of vegetables. Very few sweets at all. No bread. I love all of it. But that's what you have to do.
Having had a restaurant, did you give up fried seafood?
Well, I didn't then.
But you kind of had to do it now.
Oh, yes, yes. You have to, your diet really controls your diabetic situation.
Wow. That's sad. Because you want to say, wow, while I'm here, I want to enjoy my food. And I know you love to go out to eat. You love dining, but I guess that's all changed.
Well, you can take now, I can go let's say I go to the restaurant and I buy 4 vegetables. That's enough for 3 meals for me. I don't eat as much as I used to. And it's, that way you don't even think about your bread and your fried food and so forth.
Well, I will say that you look amazingly young for 90 years old. When's the last time you
Well,
were
thank you.
carded? When's the last time you were carded?
Carded. Mark wants to know when the last time was you were carded. I mean, really, Dick doesn't have a single wrinkle on his face. He is energetic. I mean, so whatever you're doing, Dick, you just need to keep doing it. Yeah.
Well, I don't know any other way to do it except the way I'm doing it, and it's treated me well, and I plan on keep on doing it long as the Lord lets me stay here.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Mayor Dick Hester. Once the mayor, always the mayor. You got to keep that title.
Thank you all so much for allowing me to come, and I was looking forward to it, and I hope you have learned something, and it's been a pleasure being here speaking to you about our area. And I continue to, if I meet people the first time and they're looking for a place to buy or move to this area, I says, this is the best area in the world for you to be right here. And it is.
All right, Dick, you know you're going to be on Facebook. This interview is going to be everywhere before long. So your children outside of the area will be able to see it too, and we'll tell you how they can see that, okay?
Well, good. Thank you so much, Diane. I appreciate you helping me out today.
You bet. We love you, Dick Hester.
Thank you. Thank you so much.